how much specialization is there? Maybe if I give you like two choices, is it good to have like one throw and try to become the best person in the world at that throw? Or do you want to have a bunch of stuff, like a variety of throws?
Well, for Travis, it was Ippon Seoinage. That was his main throw, right? But from that Ippon Seoinage, he had a variety of other attacks he could do, that mixed it up so that you kept people guessing. Maybe it wasn't the Ippon Se he was coming. Maybe it was the Koshi Gruma that he did. Or maybe it was the Ippon to Osoto that he did in combination. So you typically have one main throw that you do. For me, it was Tai Otoshi. For Kayla, it was her Ogoshi. For Travis, it was his Ippon Seoinage. But then you come up with the variety of other throws that you do from the very same grip. So whatever grip you take for your main throw, you want to develop, an arsenal of attacks that go in all different directions, holding that same grip. So you keep your opponent guessing as to what's coming. Because if they're just sitting on one technique at the highest level of sport, with the exception of a few, right? We talked about Ono's Uchimata.
Yeah.
With the exception of a few, most of the world catches on pretty quick on how to beat you.
There is something to just making sure you're really dedicated to the main thing. So for Travis, that would be like the main version of his Seoinage. Like really making sure you don't forget to really put in the time on that. Because, one way to say it is that threat being dangerous opens up a lot of things.
Right.
But also, I don't know. I think I'm just, as a fan, I think it's sad when like elite level athletes in all like combat sports kind of start taking their main thing for granted. Like they think, okay, I've figured that part out. Now I'll be working on all this whole system on variations, on different setups, on lefty versus left, some like weird variation, as opposed to, you know what, if you look at some of the best people ever, they seem to have not cared about variations at all. They're just like literally, they are more like Jiro Dreams of Sushi and like fine tuning their ear, their ability to detect the minute movements that give you an opening on that main thing. And so the whole time you're just waiting for that throw. You're like dancing with the like little bit of pressure, and that like releasing the pressure and putting the pressure, maybe a little bit off balance, and finding like the right moment to strike and focusing on that. Again, maybe that's just like a romanticization of like the simplicity of that. Maybe it is kind of impossible to do that on a large scale, but I just, I don't know if you can comment on that, whether there is some value in still putting in like tens of thousands of reps on the main thing.
Well, there's unquestionably that has to happen. You still have to drill your main throw, and you have to fine tune it and continue to do, repetition after repetition and throws on the crash pad, or throws on the mat, moving around, just explosive movements doing your main technique. You're never going to forget that, and you're not going to put it to the side and not practice it anymore. It still has to be part of your repertoire and part of your daily training, but you do have to evolve. And I think that's the sport of judo makes you evolve. When I look at, we talk about Koga from before, right? And we talked about, he had a dynamic Ippon Seoinage that nobody could stop for years and years and years. But when people started to, be unorthodox and come down his back and cross grip him, and he couldn't get to the lapel, he had to come up with something else. And all of a sudden you saw Koga doing, now he did a Sode, or now he did a Tomoe Nagi, which so he added to his arsenal, to keep people thinking, keep people guessing. So it's not, you're not just that one trick pony. They still couldn't stop his Ippon Seoinage once he got that grip. But if they stopped him from getting that grip or putting two hands on the gi, he had to go to something else. And that's what he did.
Does Travis's or Koga's Seoinage make sense to you? That weird, so when cause
split hip. It's
split hip. So, I don't know if you know this, but like I got into judo because of Travis. I watched him at 2008 Olympics, and I was there's something about like just not the cockiness, but the confidence and just the refusal to quit, the refusal to just that energy, whatever it connected with me. Is like, oh, that guy's badass. I want to be badass like that. And then there happened to be in my university judo, and I got into it and just fell in love with the elegance and the beauty and the power of the sport. But also I started to mimic Travis's game. his and Koga's. And then the instructors I worked with, they said that's the wrong way to do it. And I never found somebody that told me that, like, no, that's not the wrong way there's a lot of ways to do it. And there's like the classic way, and you have to understand it and you have to learn it, but this is not the wrong way. Cause I was trying to find somebody who understands this throw. Cause it was so beautiful at the highest level, especially with Koga, the way you're able, the quickness with which you can strike, the fact that you can stand on the feet, and the elevation you can get, and the power you can get. It has certain throws, just like Uchimata doesn't look powerful. It just like it looks effortless. But like the standing Seinagi with a split hip, it just looks powerful because there's you're stepping into them, you're lifting the opponent, and they're not surprised. They're now like helpless.
Right. Their feet are fluttering in the
fluttering. So, and then there's just this pause, and then just big slam. With the Uchimata, it's almost like you don't know what hit you. It's like Taitoshi is the same. It's almost like a surprise, like oh shit, I'm now on my back. And so I just love that throw, but like it didn't make sense to me. Like when trying to explain it to others, when trying to learn it, didn't make sense to me how it works. Does it make sense to you?
It does. Yeah, I was born a judoka, right? Yeah. So I've lived this stuff since I was an infant, and I've seen every style and every technique. The split hip Seinagi is difficult to learn. It's harder to learn than the basic form, but it is powerful, and it does, upon entry, both your opponent's feet leave the mat at the same time. So you've got them. Once you enter, you've got them. You just got to finish, right? Yeah. You just got to lock them and turn and go. So it makes sense to me. My dad did teach me how to do that when I was younger. Yeah, he wanted me to do a split hip. We have kids at the school today that we teach the split hip Seinagi, same way. Because it is that dynamic, right? You don't drop to the ground and roll and turn. It's not the classic form where you're giving way to your opponent. It's actually, you go pick the guy up in the air and then you slam him. So